In 1820, a boy was born in a log cabin in Franklin County, Missouri. His father died, leaving debts the family could not pay. By the time he was 26, he had paid off every dollar, leased 2 lead mines, and started reading the earth the way other men read newspapers. Local Native Americans reportedly called him the boy that the earth talked to. His name was George Hearst. He left Missouri during the gold rush and spent a decade learning how to find what the ground was hiding. He struck a 1/6 interest in the Ophir silver mine on the Comstock Lode in Nevada, then the Ontario silver mine in Utah, then the Home State gold mine in South Dakota, which would become the longest continuously operating gold mine in the Western Hemisphere, producing until 2001. Then the Anaconda copper mine in Montana, one of the most important in the world. 3 of the largest mining discoveries in American history belong to the same man. The son of a debt-ridden Missouri farmer became a United States Senator, a ranch owner of over 250,000 acres of California coastland, and one of the richest men in the country. When he died in 1891, his fortune was roughly $18 to $19 million. In today's money, that is approximately $864 million. The Homestake mine alone would produce nearly 40 million troy ounces of gold over its lifetime. At current prices, $72 billion worth of metal was pulled from a single hole in the Black Hills of South Dakota. But what I find most extraordinary about George Hearst is not what he found in the ground. It is what happened to his bloodline after he left it. His son built the largest castle in California, owned 1 in 4 American newspapers, and nearly bankrupted himself collecting 25% of the world's art market. His daughter-in-law held the empire together for 28 years, while her son spent faster than the mines could produce. His great-granddaughter was kidnapped by revolutionaries, changed her name to Tanya, and was photographed robbing a bank with a machine gun. And there was another child, a daughter George never acknowledged, born to a woman he never married, who received nothing when he died, and whose existence was hidden for over a century. This is what happened to the Hearst bloodline, from a log cabin to a castle to a bank robbery, and why the family is still worth $24.5 billion today. George married Phoebe Apperson in 1862. He was 42. She was 19. Her parents disapproved of the age gap, but Phoebe was sharper than anyone gave her credit for. She negotiated a prenuptial agreement that included 50 shares in George's Comstock mine, a schoolteacher from rural Missouri securing mining equity before the wedding. That single decision tells you everything about the woman who would eventually run the Hearst empire. Their only child, William Randolph Hearst, was born in San Francisco in 1863. George wanted him to manage the mines and the ranches. William wanted the newspaper. George had acquired the San Francisco Examiner as payment for a gambling debt. He had no interest in publishing. William begged for it. In 1887, George relented and handed the paper to his 23-year-old son. It was the most consequential handoff in American media history. I have been researching William Randolph Hearst for weeks now, and the scale of what he built still does not feel real. Within a decade, he owned newspapers in New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, and Boston. By the 1920s, he controlled 28 newspapers, a chain of magazines including Cosmopolitan and Harper's Bazaar, radio stations, film companies, and news services. 1 in 4 Americans got their news from a Hearst publication. He invented the modern concept of sensationalist media. The term yellow journalism was coined partly because of his tactics. He ran for president and lost. He ran for governor of New York and lost. He could not buy political office the way James Fair bought a Senate seat with Comstock silver, but he could shape public opinion on a scale no individual had ever achieved. Then he built the castle, On his father's ranch land at San Simeon, William spent 40 years constructing what George Bernard Shaw described as the place God would have built if he had the money. 165 rooms, 58 bedrooms, 85,000 square feet, the largest private zoo in the world, where zebras still roam the hillside today. At his peak, Hearst accounted for 25% of the global art market. He bought castles in Europe and shipped them stone by stone to California. The river nearly stopped. The Great Depression crushed the newspaper business. Hearst had overextended on everything. In 1937, a court-mandated reorganization reduced him from owner to employee. The man who controlled what a quarter of America read each morning could not control his own company. He spent his final years at San Simeon with Marion Davies, surrounded by treasures and debts in equal measure. He died in 1951 at 88. But the person who actually held the Hearst fortune together was not William. It was his mother. When George died in 1891, he left his entire estate to Phoebe, not to his son. This was deliberate. George knew William could not be trusted with capital. Phoebe ran the Hearst mining and ranching empire for 28 years. She became the first female regent of the University of California. She funded archaeological expeditions across the world. She built schools and libraries. She preserved Mount Vernon. She loaned her own son over $10 million during this period because he could not stop spending. The woman who had arrived in California as a 19-year-old bride with 50 shares of Comstock stock became one of the most influential philanthropists in American history. She died during the Spanish flu pandemic in 1919 at her 1,900-acre estate in Pleasanton, California. She was 77 years old. Everything she built outlasted everything her son built. William Randolph Hearst had 5 sons with his wife Millicent Wilson, a chorus girl whose mother reportedly ran a New York brothel. The sons worked within the Hearst Corporation and managed the family fortune. William Jr. shared a Pulitzer Prize for war coverage. The family maintained wealth through the corporation rather than individual inheritance, which is why the fortune survived where so many frontier fortunes did not. But it was Randolph's daughter who would make the Hearst name famous for something entirely different. On the 4th of February, 1974, Patricia Hearst, 19 years old, was kidnapped from her Berkeley apartment by the Symbionese Liberation Army. They demanded the family distribute millions in food to the poor. Her father complied. It was not enough. 2 months later, security cameras captured Patty holding a machine gun during a San Francisco bank robbery. She had taken the name Tanya. She was arrested in September 1975, convicted, and sentenced to 7 years. President Carter commuted her sentence. President Clinton pardoned her fully. She lives quietly today. The great-granddaughter of a Missouri log cabin farmer who could read the earth became the most famous kidnapping victim in American history. And then there is the daughter nobody was supposed to know about. In 1846, years before the Comstock Lode or the Gold Rush or any of it, George Hearst fathered a child with a woman named Susanna Anderson. They named her Margaret Ellen. George and Susanna never married. The child was never publicly acknowledged. When George died in 1891, Margaret Ellen received nothing. The family kept this secret for over a century. It only surfaced through a diary written by a relative's sister-in-law, a document that was never meant to be read by anyone outside the family. As I covered in my video on the Comstock Kings, the men who built fortunes from frontier silver left complicated legacies. George Hearst's is among the most complicated of all. An illegitimate daughter erased from history while a castle rose on the California coast. Here is what survives. Hearst Castle is a California state park, drawing over 800,000 visitors per year. The Hearst Corporation generates $11.5 billion in annual revenue. The family's combined net worth is estimated at $24.5 billion, making them among the 25 wealthiest families in America. the Homestake Mine in Lead, South Dakota, the gold mine George Hearst bought in 1877, is now the Sanford Underground Research Facility, where physicists study neutrinos, subatomic particles that may explain the origins of the universe. A gold mine became a portal into the beginning of everything. George Hearst could read the earth. His son could read the public. His daughter-in-law could read a balance sheet. His great-granddaughter was read her rights. And his other daughter, the one born in 1846 in Missouri, could not even read her own father's will because she was not in it. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more history mysteries from the Old West.